The Ryder Cup was supposed to be about golf, about glory, teamwork, and the spirit of competition. But at Bethpage Black, that spirit fractured under the weight of one controversy no one saw coming.
We tried to set the course up to help our team. Obviously, it wasn't the right decision.
What was meant to be a celebration of rivalry turned into a debate about fairness, rules, and respect. When the dust settled, the final score almost didn't matter. What people remembered was not the putts, but the policy. Something inside the rulebook had cracked open and outspilled one of the strangest scandals in Ryder Cup history. The 2025 Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black was supposed to be America's redemption arc. Home soil, roaring fans, and a captain, Keegan Bradley, hungry to restore pride. But by the time Sunday ended, the conversation wasn't about who drained the winning putt. It was about a dusty old rule that hadn't made headlines in decades, the envelope rule. Here's how it unfolded. Europe's Viktor Hovland, one of their deadliest players, pulled out with a neck injury before his singles match. According to Ryder Cup tradition, both captains must secretly write down one player's name before play begins. That player sits out if the opposing team loses someone to injury. When Hovland withdrew, the name inside Bradley's envelope was revealed. Harris English. That meant English couldn't play either. No substitution, no adjustment, just one word in the rulebook. Void. Both sides were awarded a half point. On paper, that 0.5 may not seem like much, but in a 15-13 European victory, it felt like a dagger. The optics were terrible. While one team celebrated, another stood stunned. Not beaten on the green, but beaten by a clause. Harris English wasn't injured. He was ready.
Obviously, I wanted to go to the first tee, and the adrenaline was pumping like no other, so...
Yet because of a decades-old policy written in 1971, he never got to touch a club on Sunday. It wasn't just bad luck. It was a rule that suddenly looked outdated and unfair. By the closing ceremony, tension thickened like the summer air in New York. Bradley stood stoic, jaw locked tight, eyes distant. Donald stayed calm. Too calm, some said. The picture of diplomacy. But even before the trophy was lifted, the storm had started brewing. When Keegan Bradley finally stepped to the microphone, he didn't dodge, spin, or sugarcoat. He let it rip.
Yeah, it has to change. I mean, the rule has to change.
It has to change. 3 words that detonated across the golf world. Bradley wasn't talking about his strategy or his players. He was taking aim at the envelope rule itself, the invisible hand that sidelined one of his guys. To him, it wasn't about losing a match. It was about losing fairness. He told reporters it made no sense, that in no other sport would an injury to one player force another team to sit someone out. If Tom Brady gets hurt, he said, you don't hand the other team 7 points. That line alone went viral. The timing made it sting even more. Fresh off a home loss, emotions raw. Bradley's fury hit like a punch. Some called it bravery, standing up for his player. Others said it was sour grapes, the captain blaming the rulebook instead of the scoreboard. Social media split in half. Clips of Bradley's press conference looped endlessly, captioned with, he's right, and make it fair. He didn't lay out solutions. He didn't have to. The message was clear. The system was broken, and someone needed to fix it. If Keegan Bradley was fire, Luke Donald was ice. When he faced reporters a few minutes later, his demeanor was the exact opposite. Controlled, polite, and deliberate. Asked directly about Bradley's comments, Donald didn't flinch. He gave a history lesson instead.
I think it's been in place since 1971. The U.S. have used it before.
He reminded everyone that this wasn't some underhanded European advantage. Every captain knows the envelope rule going in. Every player signs off. It's been part of Ryder Cup DNA for over 50 years. If Bradley had a problem with it, Donald implied, he should have raised it before the tournament, not after the loss. It was subtle, but devastating. While Bradley sounded emotional, Donald sounded composed, even sympathetic. He said he felt for both Viktor Hovland and Harris English, calling it an unfortunate situation. But then came the dagger. You can't rewrite the rules mid-match just because the result hurts. With that, Donald not only defended the tradition, he positioned himself as the adult in the room. Donald's calm response turned the narrative on its head. What had started as an argument over fairness turned into a battle over image. Bradley's anger played well online, emotional, raw, relatable. relatable, but Donald's restraint won him respect in the press room. He came across not as defensive, but dignified. A captain protecting the integrity of the game, even when the mob wanted someone to blame. By the next morning, analysts were calling Donald the statesman, a man who held composure while chaos unfolded around him. Bradley, on the other hand, was painted as the passionate, frustrated captain who let emotion overtake control. And in the sport of golf, where composure is currency, optics matter almost as much as results. But this story wasn't just captains and rules. It was also about the crowd. Bethpage Black's fans had built a reputation long before the first tee shot. Loud, proud, and unapologetically American. But over the weekend, that pride teetered into something darker. Donald didn't hold back. He accused parts of the crowd of crossing the line, heckling players during swings, taunting families. Even one report of a beer can flying toward Rory McIlroy's wife. He called it what it was, abuse disguised as passion. Passion is fine, Donald said, but abuse is not. McIlroy backed him up later, saying the atmosphere had gone beyond competitive energy and into hostility. Europe had been booed before, but this time, it felt like the line between patriotism and chaos had vanished. Bradley stayed quiet on the issue, but his silence spoke volume. By not condemning the crowd's behavior, he allowed the contrast to grow. Europe looked composed, while Team USA looked unruly. Bethpage pride had turned into Bethpage shame. And Luke Donald, without raising his voice, came out looking like the man who restored order in a storm. Once the microphones were turned off, the pundits pounced. Golf Channel, Sky Sports, ESPN, everyone had their version of the story. Was Bradley a bold truth-teller calling out a broken rule, or just a captain venting after defeat? One side painted him as the man standing up for fairness. The other called him a sore loser, hiding behind policy. Donald, meanwhile, was praised for his calm authority. His responses were measured, his tone respectful. He was the diplomat, a captain defending both his team and the game itself. Social media, however, told a different story. Bradley's fiery "it has to change" clip went viral, racking up millions of views. Fans turned his outburst into memes, remixes, and rallying cries. Donald's lines didn't trend, but inside golf circles, his composure made a deeper impression. By midweek, the headlines had transformed the entire incident into a morality play. Tradition versus reform. Logic versus emotion. Calm versus chaos. And once again, optics won. Donald left New York not just as the winning captain, but as the defender of golf's fragile balance between passion and protocol. The Ryder Cup ended, but the arguments didn't. Bradley's three-word grenade, "it has to change," had already set something in motion. Committees from the PGA, DP World Tour, and Ryder Cup Europe began informal talks. The envelope rule, long ignored, was suddenly under review. Ideas started floating. Should captains be allowed to name substitutes? Should the injured player's opponent automatically get a point? Or should the rule be scrapped altogether? Each idea came with complications. Add alternates, and you risk diluting the prestige. Award automatic points, and you might invite gamesmanship. Keep the rule as is, and you risk another Bethpage. Whatever happens, the debate was now impossible to ignore. For Keegan Bradley, Bethpage became personal. He may not have lifted the cup, but he left with a cause. The captain who challenged tradition. For Luke Donald, it was vindication. He proved that composure can be as powerful as confrontation. Two captains, two philosophies, one moment that will define them both. Bradley, fiery and outspoken, demanding change. Donald, calm and unshaken, defending order. Both right in their own way. Both forever linked by a single envelope sealed before the first tee shot. In the end, the 2025 Ryder Cup won't be remembered for a 15-13 scoreline. It will be remembered as the cup hijacked by paperwork, the tournament where tradition met rebellion, and golf's politest event turned into a storm of politics and pride. Bradley's frustration sparked a conversation that golf can no longer avoid. Donald's restraint reminded everyone why rules exist in the first place. Between them lies the truth. Sports evolve. evolve, but only when someone dares to question the system. The envelope rule may survive until 2027, or it may not. But one thing's certain: Bethpage changed everything. Because when golf's captains trade words instead of drives, the echoes last long after the final putt drops. So now, the question isn't who won the Ryder Cup, it's who won the argument. What do you think? Was Bradley standing up for fairness, or just venting in defeat? And did Donald defend tradition or hide behind it? Drop your take below, because one thing's clear: this Ryder Cup might be over, but the fight over its future has only just begun.